All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown. All three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing Ken Follett's Edge of Eternity. This is book number 3 in his Century Trilogy. Book number 1 was Fall of Giants. Book number 2 was Winter of the World. And now we've got book number 3, Edge of Eternity. If you want to watch my previous book reviews of book number 1 and book number 2, all you need to do is type in my last name, Durfee, into the YouTube search bar, and then type in Ken Follett's name into the YouTube search bar. And by some sort of pagan sorcery, that video review will magically appear upon your television screen if you care to watch these 2 previous reviews. But let's talk about the covers first, because you know I love graphic design and cover illustration. I've got the hardcover versions of the books right here. I've got the little paperbacks right here. Now, if we're to take the hardcover and the paperback and compare and contrast the two, well, by God, they're exactly the same, which is pretty rare in publishing to have it be the same. I mean, the back is a little different. Got a little bit of a difference on the back, but the spines are the same, mostly. But when you put these 3 books together on the shelf, they look really nice. They look like they go together. It's a really nice set of books. And then if you put even the paperbacks together on the shelf, of course, you get the same really cool aesthetics where all the books match up. So good job to the publisher for that, because we do know on this channel that publishers that up almost always, but this publisher did it pretty good, at least so far. I don't know how the reprint editions will be, but anyway, let's move on. So we've got the cover. Inside we've got maps. In fact, the maps are probably, the maps are in the paperback too. There's a lot of maps of different places we're going to be visiting. There's an entire character list that's several pages long, and then there's also a lineage chart. Is that a word? We'll edit it out. If it's not a word, we'll edit it out. If you can tell that it was not edited out, that means I looked it up, and it is a word, lineage. There's the lineage chart. That's the lineage chart of the characters we've got. So we've got a lot of extra features in the book, and then each book is about 1,100 pages long, so it's great. Now, what is the Century Trilogy? The Century Trilogy is a set of 3 books that follow 5 separate families through from the year 1900 till the year 1980. So in the first book, of course, we're talking about World War I stuff. The second book is about World War II. The third book is set between the years 1960 and 1980 about, Vietnam and stuff. And we're going to get into some of the things that it's about. But we open in East Germany in 1961, where it's a suffocating communist regime that is taken over East Germany. Now, you can just compare and contrast. Compare and contrast is compassed. Compare and contrast the differences between West Germany, where democracy and capitalism was allowed to flourish, and how everybody was doing pretty good in West Germany. Then East Germany, where, it was the Soviet Union was running that with communism, socialism, all of that stuff. And it was a nightmare in East Germany in 1961. I mean, dozens and dozens of books have been written, movies have been made about the amount of people that desperately tried to escape from East Germany into West Germany, over the fences, over the Berlin Wall. I mean, it's a historical fact that East Germany sucked at the time with its socialist policies. It suffocated people. Even the George Orwell's Animal Farm that book was illegal to own in East Germany. East Germany is what we would have got. Like, had Hitler conquered everything, And every bit of Hitler's plans would have, and he would have formed the government he wanted. It would have been a socialist hellscape, exactly like East Germany ended up being. Guaranteed. I mean, Hitler wasn't aiming. All of his goals weren't so people could be free and have capitalism. No, that wasn't the goal. It was to make East Germany what East Germany was in the 60s. The Soviets just did it for him. But anyway, well, because he was dead, thank God. But anyway, that's all over now. There is no, Germany is one country now, and I've been there, and it's dope. I love it. So anyway, enough of that's what we were opening up with. What was Germany like in the 60s? What was Russia like in the 60s? What was the United States like in the 60s? What was Great Britain like in the 60s? Through the 80s, this is what this book is about. It's very good. You can feel the oppression of this communist regime that is in East Germany, just dictating the minutia of everybody's lives. And we see this through the perspective of a woman named Rebecca Frank. And again, we got the lineage here. We got for all the characters that are in Russia, all the characters that are in Poland, all the characters that are in the United States, you get it. But they all interact. Every character, every family that we follow through these three books, they all have connections. They interact. They intermarry. They betray each other. It's just a grand, huge global soap opera that takes place over the span of 80 years. It's absolutely wonderful trilogy. So we can see through the lineages how all of characters kind of interact with each other. And then we go, another perspective we have is George Jakes. Now he is the character that we see most of what happens through the United States. And he, through his eyes, we get to see that he tackles all the subjects of, in America, of race relations, how, in the 60s, a lot of the stuff in the South between the blacks and the whites was not going well, and how people were segregated to the back of the bus, the front of the bus, different drinking fountains, different schools, different bathrooms, all of this. We're seeing it through George Jakes' perspective as he navigates his way through a very racist society in America, and how the people fought against that, and how the people reversed all of that between the years of 1960 and 1980s. So you can tell that Ken Follett's tackling all of the hard-hitting subjects that were on our planet at the time. We got another character named Tanya. She's a journalist in Moscow, which was a dangerous job in Moscow, by the way. Not a lot of journalists that really wanted to tell the truth lasted very long in Russia at the time. Probably one of my favorite perspectives to follow through, and there's probably about a half a dozen to 10 characters that we really kind of get viewpoints on, but I'm mentioning just a few of them here in the book just to give you a kind of a sense of what's happening. But Tanya gets involved a lot in Russia politics, America, and then and so we get the German, British, Russian, American. We get all of these different perspectives on all of the different big events that happen in our world through 1960 and 1980, through these fictional characters that have their own relationships. It's just and there's a lot of action. There's a lot of tension. We get to see a lot of historical figures that are actually real, like Khrushchev and just anybody that was like the American presidents and everybody, the Kennedys and things like that. So we get to see a lot of stuff about the Cuban Missile Crisis from the American perspective, from what the Russians were doing, from how the British kind of viewed it, or not just that, but the Kennedy assassination, the relationship between the Kennedys and their Khrushchev, the Vietnam War, the Berlin Wall, and how I already went off on a rant about the Berlin Wall. And then all of this stuff is in this book, seen through the eyes of all these characters. And Ken Follett, just if you've read The Pillars of the Earth, Ken Follett just does characterization so well. His bad guys are bad, his good guys are good. It is just an absolutely dynamite trilogy as we get to go through World War I and everything about that, World War II and everything about that, and then the final part of the trilogy where we're in the 1960s and 80s. Is a 10 out of 10. The whole series is just phenomenal. One of my favorite historical fiction series that I've ever read. It's just absolutely dynamite. So Edge of Eternity gets a massive 10 out of 10 for me, as did the previous 2 books. Allegedly, in my opinion.